In this review, we're talking about the Tudor Advisor. It's not a new release, but it caught our attention for one particular reason. It has an alarm function. This really isn't something that we see very commonly on mechanical watches, and isn't really something that we've seen a lot in the past. In 1947, Vulcain introduced the Cricket, which was a mechanical alarm watch, and then Jaeger-LeCoultre followed in 1956 with the release of its iconic Memovox. Tudor, 1 year later in 1957, released the first iteration of the Advisor, which was actually 34 millimeters compared to this edition, which is 42 millimeters. The case is the first thing that I noticed when I picked up this watch. Because it's constructed out of titanium and steel, it's really light and very comfortable to wear throughout the day. In addition to the lightness, I also noticed one other aspect, the thickness of the case. It sits rather high off the wrist. Now usually this is something that would really annoy me, but in this instance, because it sits high off the wrist, it was a lot easier to access the crown at 2 o'clock to control the alarm function. In order to utilize the alarm function, they've included an indicator at 3 o'clock, which shows how much power reserve is left on the timepiece, and also an indicator at 9 o'clock, which shows whether the alarm function is on or off. The indicator at 9 o'clock can be controlled by a pusher at 8 o'clock, which is teardrop shaped and sits right near the lug. Overall, it's relatively easy to use, and I found myself using it throughout the day, much to the disdain of my colleagues. The alarm itself isn't really that loud, but what it does do is vibrate noticeably. So if you're somebody who responds much better to physical movement like I do, you'll notice it a bit more on the wrist. Now, if you sleep like I do, which is pretty heavily, it won't wake you up in the morning, but at the end of the day, as an advisor, its goal is to kind of give you an indication of how your day is progressing and other events. So I see this really helpful for professions like a professor, in which they need to keep track of the length of a class, for example. Tudor's used a range of finishes throughout the case and the dial. On the case, constructed out of steel and titanium, you'll see a highly polished bezel and a matte finish on the face of the lugs. On the dial side, there are a couple of different layers. One layer features a matte finishing, whereas the other layer features a satin finishing. There are 3 Arabic numerals, 3, 12, and 9, in addition to the applied hour indices, which feature a lume at the end point. Overall, I think the Tudor Advisor presents pretty good value within its price range. The model I reviewed, which comes on an alligator strap, is just under $6,000. A different model is available which comes on a steel bracelet that'll put you over the $6,000 mark. There really aren't that many mechanical wristwatches available today with an alarm function. In addition to that fact, I think Tudor packaged everything quite nicely in a lightweight steel and titanium case. So if you're looking for a watch that can take you easily from the classroom, for example, to a night out, I think the Tudor Advisor is an excellent option.